You're listening to the Ask Drone U podcast. You ask, we answer your drone questions. Whether you're here to turn your passion into profit or you simply fly for fun, we're a community of learners and teachers who aspire to achieve greatness. We are
Drone U.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Ask Drone U. As always, my name is Paul.
My name is Rob. Thank you for joining us. As always, we appreciate you spending a few minutes of your day with us. We hope to bring you some value today.
Definitely bring you value indeed. And there is a question that is on the top of everyone's minds if you are a drone pilot. Should I be buying DJI drones prior to the ban or invest in American? We've talked about it ad nauseum a little bit. We're gonna summarize it. We're gonna succinct it down and give you a formula to follow to help you make this decision so much easier. Because in all honesty, we are 129 days away from an automatic DJI ban. So the time to make a decision is now. Are you ready to do it or not? So for those of you who need a quick little refresher on the DJI ban, there's a lot of videos out there. I've actually seen, Rob, a lot of other drone influencers, experts, mentioning things about the ban that are just absolutely not correct. So let's get it out there. Here is the summarized version of where we are at with the DJI ban. Okay, what does the ban mean as of August 18th, 2025? That's when we're shooting this show. There's a clause, section 1709 in the FY or fiscal year 2025 NDAA that set a December 23rd, 2025 deadline that unless a US national security agency completes a formal review and gives DJI and Autel a pass, the FCC must add them to its covered list. That would block any new US approvals, imports, or marketing of any new DJI, Autel, or other licensed drones at all. The pressure point is the future sales and replenishment, not an instant grounding of what you already own.
Important point.
Okay, now earlier proposals like the Countering CCP Drones Act discussed grandfathering existing already authorized DJI drones, but how that plays out under the current covered list pathway isn't necessarily guaranteed. Most credible analysis states that existing drones would likely keep flying, but it's not 100% locked in. Revocations or other rules could still tighten things further. On top of the NDAA clock, again, December 23rd, 2025, the White House and Commerce Secretary have signaled additional executive and BIS rulemaking paths that could constrain Chinese drone sales further and sooner. We talked about that in the news show last week. So now we are here kind of trying to make a decision of, should you run out and go buy DJI drones before the ban, assuming that the ban happens? I mean, they're talking about 3 different ways to ban DJI. I think it's pretty clear that they have it out for DJI. I don't think anything is going to stop the DJI ban at this point unless they come back with the security investigation and say, no, DJI is not a problem. Albeit this weekend on Twitter, Rob, or Twitter, formerly Twitter, X. I always hate doing that.
How many years has it been? And I still struggle with that.
Yeah, anyway. Seriously. There was a bunch of people posting how the Chinese military uses DJIs, especially M350s, M4Es and M3Es to drop bombs. And it's funny because there have been many vocal drone influencers on YouTube who have been saying that there is no proof of, DJI security leaks or used for government warfare or anything. Then I literally tweeted out the photos and was like, whoops, there it is.
That's just wishful thinking.
It is wishful thinking. But before we get into what is the formula that you should use to actually discern, should I go buy more DJI drones before the ban, or should I buy American drones? We're going to get to our sponsors today, which I'm going to make this really quick. Part 108, we talked about it in the news show. You should definitely check it out. There are a lot of different covered operations under Part 108. We are going to be putting out an article that we think has the best summary table to explain what these operations are, what to expect, etc. But we're going to be having a webinar coming up, and just look out for it. We're probably going to announce it via our list here this week to talk about what comments should you be considering when reaching out to the FAA regarding Part 108. There are some things that we're kind of toiling with here at Drone U regarding, this Part 108 swings the pendulum from really conservative drone rules to really liberal drone rules, and actually creates more gray area in some very specific points. So we're trying to figure out, well, what matters more, fixing to the traditional system or opening up the airways? And I think they could actually be doing more with opening up the airways, because once you actually read the rules and then you look at Landscan, a lot of these drone delivery options are not going to be viable in most urban environments. It's going to be locked down for like the Amazons of the world. So that being said, there's a lot of things to consider. It's 700 pages long. And in all honesty, there's so much to talk about. And then we have to synthesize that, organize it, and come up with things that you should be considering on what you may want to comment on. And there's at least 20 topics to comment on. I've already got 20 pages. I know Rob already has 15 pages. The point of this is look out for the webinar on Part 108. It's going to be coming. Sponsor number 2, we have our last drone mapping and modeling class here in lovely Loveland, Colorado in September. And look, if you want to know the differences between desktop processing, cloud processing, you want to get into creating point clouds, manipulating point clouds, providing deliverables, and you want to actually up your skills so that you can qualify for more jobs or get a job in drone mapping and modeling, you've got to attend our drone mapping class. So if you check out map.thedroneu.com, you can check out, that also includes flight mastery. So if you want to learn those operational habits and systems that we provide to all the pilots at the top, that's going to be included in the class. Now, that being said, I did talk to a good friend of ours who's local, who's writing a review for us. I actually asked him if he would post it on Reddit, but this student attended one of our classes earlier this year and already got full-time employment at a very high level wage to do mapping. So very proud of him. And it's funny, that's who we had lunch with, if you remember.
Yep, I do.
And it's just a great story of how he has gone through our curriculum, followed the journey, got work right away. So I'm just super proud of him. Jesse, great job. Stoked to see you soon. So anyway, let's hit this question.
Hi, I want to start off by saying I love the show and I love your approach to delivering data, but I'll get right to it. I'm a startup inspection business, and I'm curious about being an earlier adopter of American drones, specifically the Skydio X10 and the thermal option on the drone. Do you think this would be a good investment with the DJI ban? Where do you put your risk tolerance in going ahead and buying the DJI Matrice 4T, or do you think it's worth making the early investment into the Skydio X10 in the thermal arena for inspections? There's a caveat. I do live in Florida, so I do see tons of opportunity for this, especially with building inspections, which is the area that I'm in.
All right, Stefan, thank you very much for your question. And like Paul alluded to kind of in the opening, this is a question that a lot of people are dealing with, those that are, I guess, optimistic about the future of their ability to be a drone service provider in the industry. And I hope there's still a bunch of you out there, but it's a tough decision.
It's especially tough, too, if you're in the creative world, which he's not in the creative world. So we don't have to hit that for this show. But if you're in the creative world, it's really hard to find anything close to DJI. And, we've been proponents of, consider American drones, et cetera. But there's only one American drone that remotely comes close on creative work. And it still doesn't have your hyperlapse features. It still doesn't have some of the pre-programmed automated flight modes that some people love, like the droney shots, et cetera. But again, the Freefly Astro has the capability of, capturing your great video, having an ND filter, still shooting amazing panos, doing all that, and capturing mapping data and modeling data. So the problem is that if you were to have the equivalent drone, let's say that you had an M4E for the mapping and then an Air 3 or Air 3S for the creative work, you're talking about maximum $8,000, maybe $7,000, right?
Yeah.
Freefly Astro is going to run you $40,000.
Now that's if you do the NDAA version, right?
That is correct. Yes.
Yeah, which you might as well.
You literally, yes, 100%. Now, another thing to consider here, Rob, is that the fact that this guy is in Florida. So they have even more drone restrictions than any other state in the entire union.
That's actually a really, really important point because they are more stringent against DJI in Florida, aren't they?
They are, yep. Uh-huh.
Yeah, so that really kind of changes the entire algorithm for this particular person.
Yes, it does. But let's talk about this kind of in a wider scope because a lot of you are asking this question. What is the business case? You've got really two competing bets here of do I stick with DJI where the return on investment is pretty much unmatched. For even a $3,000 to $5,000 airframe, it's typically being paid back in a handful of private sector jobs. Your margins stay pretty fat. There's a lot of different capability, a larger ecosystem, and likely even if DJI does end up on the covered list, most likely you're going to be able to continue using it.
And by most likely, I hesitate to do this, but I'll do it anyways. The percentage that's going to be the case is pretty high, like high 90s.
Yeah, I would
probably
agree. Yeah, I would agree.
So I don't think there's a tremendous amount of risk. There is some risk, but I don't think there's a tremendous amount of risk that you're just going to be grounded.
Yeah, 100%. Now, if the BIS does come out with a rule that would limit, let's say, transactions and that would limit your ability to get parts or new units, think about care refresh, right? You're probably going to have to fly a little bit more cautious because things like care refresh won't work. You crash your DJI drone, you're not getting a new one. I hate to break it to you.
Well, but you crash your Freefly, you're not getting a new one because you're going to have another 40 grand. So I don't know that that's actually much different.
Well, and you actually bring up a really important point. Most insurance policies only cover up to $25,000.
That's true. And they're going to have to change that because of the American drone situation. Unless that changes, which obviously we hope it does.
Yeah, we talked about that with Chris Proudlove. I don't know where that show went, but we need to be kind of reaching out to that. But anyway, so let's imagine that after December 23rd, 2025, you can't buy DJI. So you are accepting some risk, right? If you crash it, if something breaks, are you going to be able to fix it, replace it? And I know that this particular question asker is talking about pretty much a Matrice 4 thermal, which is going to run more money than
7-8?
Yeah, I actually, the last time I saw it online for sale, it was $9,500.
I don't think they're that much anymore.
So
I don't think.
Either way, it's still less than
all the tariff stuff settled down.
Yeah, it's less than a quarter of a Freefly Astro and it's less than half of a Skydio X10.
Right.
Now, the big thing here is that if you do invest in NDAA platforms or American approved drones, you're going to have more access to like public safety contracts, utility contracts, Department of Transportation contracts, energy contracts, and you're not really going to have any procurement headaches. So the thing is that you're going to have strategic stability for those customers, which you can command much higher rates and stickier contracts, meaning you have them for longer periods of time. I know that a lot of people who have been in the creative work with DJI would love to have more sustainability and more consistency in jobs. And that might be something that American Drones can provide.
It might, but I will say this, and I don't mean to be Debbie Downer, but those contracts are not super easy to get.
No, they take a while. Even we're seeing that on the training side with government contracts.
We are. They are out there. It is possible. And I think there are paths that are going to make it more viable that we probably should educate on. For example, partnering with somebody who already has a relationship with the government, those kinds of things. But I think just to say, I'm going to go buy a Skydio X10 or even a Freefly because it's NDAA, and therefore I have all this opportunity with federal contracts, et cetera, et cetera. It's not, I don't know. It's not quite, I was talking to somebody the other day who...
It's not what? Sorry, before you get into that, it's not what?
It's not super viable. It's more complicated than I think it sounds.
Okay.
That's my perception.
Okay, well, let's hear your story because I know you're going to go into it.
Well, the story was this person that was asking me this very same question because it's like previously in the kind of the first 5, 6, 7 years or whatever, the big question was, how do I price stuff? That's still a hard question. not as hard, I would say, because of all the data that we have now.
True.
But now the question is, do I go American or do I go right? And
we could have a whole show on the pricing thing, though, because we are seeing the drone jobbers manipulate the market at levels I've never seen before. Like, they're putting out articles on how to price your work, but it's 10 times less than what they're charging.
I know.
Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
We should blow them up. But anyways.
That should be a great podcast. AskDroneU.com. How is drone pricing being manipulated online? Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, that's interesting. So anyway, I was talking to this person who's in the North Carolina area, and he was asking the same thing. Should I buy a Freefly? Should I buy a Skydio? It seems like I should maybe buy one of each. And it's like, whoa, slow down. What kind of work are you looking at doing? There was nothing even remotely close to federal contract work or anything like that. He was thinking about big developments that are going on in his area, private sector jobs, really great opportunity that looked like it could go out for years. You absolutely don't need those drones.
Yeah.
And so I gave him a couple of different options that would probably save him. Well, I know it would save him tens of thousands of dollars. Not that we don't love those drones, but these kinds of folks just don't need that stuff.
Yeah.
When it comes to inspections specifically that Stefan is asking about, that's probably something you would need to speak to as it relates specifically to Skydio, and because I know they have some really strong abilities in that regard.
Well, if he's talking about those recertification inspections, that kind of yields a different, everything is deliverable dependent. Whenever we talk about pricing in the mapping class, I give people a matrix in the class, and I always talk about deliverable, because honestly, that's what it comes down to. What app you're going to use, how much you're going to pay for it, the size of the property, et cetera, et cetera. Like, it's a multivariate algo, but it's pretty easy to wrap your head around once you get it. That being said, I think something that's really critical to understand, regarding recertification, Skydio. Sitescan now has a facade inspect tool.
Okay.
I just saw it in our account, although I'm not able to use it, so I can't really state how good or bad it really is.
Well, and realistically, for a person like this, is Sitescan going to be an option?
So here's the thing. This is a very good question, because if you are working for an engineering firm, all you need to do is provide them with the report, the point cloud, the model, right? How the engineering firm is working with the HOA or the condo, metro district, or the county. It has not been clear to me how they're actually giving those deliverables. From the two people I've talked to, they're still using Civil 3D and a PDF report. So if that is the case, and Mike, I hope you love this comment, but Mike, the CEO of DroneDeploy, but DroneDeploy's facade inspection tool is money. It's amazing. And if you're doing the inspections, the recertifications, which, by the way, someone asked me, because we just had someone in mapping class this last week who's in Florida doing these, and he said 70% of these condo administrations filed for extensions, which everyone got an automatic 2-year extension to get this work done. So it's still massively in demand, and it's not being met. So the opportunity is still there. But if you're providing a PDF report, I'm using DroneDeploy. I'm doing the 3D capture, which is pretty much orbits. You can use our orbital flight plan and get a little bit better data, to be honest. Then that begs the question, which drone can I use for DroneDeploy to do that? Every DJI drone is pretty much covered that's on the enterprise side. There are some consumer drones too that are covered with DroneDeploy. I know that
like a 3S or something.
Yes. Yeah. I know that DroneDeploy also supports Skydio. They support the X10. They support what is it called? The X2. They support the S2.
Okay.
But I would want to make sure with the facade inspection tool, which X10 is supported. Is it the L payload, which has that better camera, or is it the Z payload, which is better for zoom? Because Skydio has said the L payload is better for complex mapping and modeling. When we use the Z payload, it worked out very well. So again, this really takes the algo of what's the deliverable, what's the job, and then some of these buildings are quote unquote critical infrastructure. If any of them are state controlled, state run, owned by the military, owned by a federal contractor in the state of Florida, you have to use an NDAA approved drone.
Yeah, but if you take all the buildings and then you, as a percentage of the total buildings that are those buildings, it's going to be a relatively small percentage.
Oh yeah, I would say less than 10%.
Absolutely less than 10%.
100%. Which you bring up a really good point too, is when we look at this from a mathematical formula, what's a quick, easy way to decide this, right? let's just say that your $5,000 Chinese drone nets you a $300 per hour margin. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Let's do the math, because my math here was for a $3,000 drone, which I don't think you can buy anymore, right?
I will say too, $300 margin per hour sounds pretty high. I don't know how realistic that is.
I mean, those fly-through tours, like I just did one last weekend. I spent a total of 2 hours and 15 minutes, and I charged $1,500. You know, like, so if you think about that, that's...
And that was on a Vada 2, probably.
So I mean, you're talking almost $750 an hour. But that's excluding, okay, I spent what, $1 in gas? You know? Anyway, so I don't think $300 an hour margin is unrealistic. Let's just go with $200 an hour, okay? So $5,000 drone divided by $200 an hour, that means it's only going to take you 25 hours to make up the cost of the drone. That's what? 3 jobs? Mm-hmm. If you got a 20-story building, that's 1 job that you cover the cost.
Yep.
Now, let's say that we have a $20,000 to $30,000 US drone at a $400 to $600 margin per hour on regulated jobs. You're going to end up breaking even between 33 and 75 hours, which a very important point that says viable if you actually could book those contracts, not you hope to, which you just said they're not very easy to get.
I don't think they are. No, I mean, you've got to just setting up your infrastructure. I don't think that's necessarily difficult, but it takes some time, and you kind of have to have some semblance of understanding of what to do. The information's out there. Don't get me wrong. It's doable. But then at that point, you don't just put all your information into this, we'll call it the federal registry per se, and then they start calling you. That's when the networking starts. That's when you got to start looking for RFPs, those kinds of things. And so you got to do that legwork, which takes time. I don't want to be discouraging, but the last thing I want to do is tell you guys that it's easy. We want to be real and objective.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. So let's just say you decided not to say it.
No, I decided not to say it.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. But like, if you're going after those contracts, you might have to pay someone to literally do the legwork of the networking, of the searching, of the applying. Because what I don't like about federal contracting is it reminds me a lot of the movie industry. Hurry up and wait. Hurry up. Okay, there's a contract. You have 30 days.
Yeah. And the other piece to this, gosh, I feel like I'm being such a, again, Debbie Downer, and I just don't want to do that, but I don't want to be misleading either. But there are massive corporations that have been set up like a Booz Allen specifically to get 98% of their revenue from these freaking contracts.
Yeah.
And so
you have to compete with them.
You do.
Yeah.
In some way, in some of these particular, I mean, I'm sure they have a threshold. Like I'm guessing they're not going to go after like a $50,000 contract or something. I'm guessing. I don't know.
Yeah.
But you are in that world now.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just something to consider if you're thinking, I'm going to go buy this X10 and then go get those contracts. Maybe not.
Yeah, this is all really important to understand. I mean, I think the return on investment is much better on a DJI drone. If you're working mostly on condos and housing, it's my understanding that you can still use a DJI drone to do the recertification work, do the inspection work. Mavic, I keep saying Mavic because on the last news show, I actually showed everyone that the Matrice 4 Enterprise was supposed to be a Mavic 4 Enterprise. Found the evidence thanks to Arnaud over at Orca. But anyway, long story short is, let's say that you have a Matrice 4 Enterprise and you're doing these building inspections. One, you have 3 cameras to choose from on top of your thermal payload. You can marry the laser rangefinder data with the photogrammetric data to create very good 3D models, like extremely good 3D models. You're going to be able to do a lot more of them a lot faster with the Matrice 4 Enterprise, right? I mean, like, take the battery time. We were getting like 25-30 minutes on an X10, 40 to 45 on an M4E. It's actually, I would say about 35 to 37.
Yeah, that sounds like it's too much.
35 to 37. So, I mean, you're going to be able to do more. Yeah, I mean, I just think that the answer is we need to give these people a strategy, Rob. I mean, what do you think is a good strategy? or I guess a red line or cutoff point of like, if you're in this person's shoes, are you saying, you know what? I think you buy a couple of DJI drones right now. That'll give you 2 years to figure out what happens. You can go after the American contracts or the federal contracts, in those 2 years, still flying DJI, still working on your skills, etc. I mean, what type of strategy do you think is the way to go?
I think what you just described is probably it. Get a couple of DJIs while you can, because they are so good, and keep an eye out for opportunities beyond DJI. Again, the whole equation, I think, changes in Florida, but I just want to think of it from more of a macro perspective. I would be buying the DJIs personally at this stage because you still can, and stockpiling as much as you can in terms of batteries and so forth, props, I guess. Those kinds of things. I mean, there's probably aftermarket props and so forth that are probably fine, but that's what I would do. I think that, you know, for all of the great things that the X10 can do in terms of inspections and so forth, they're really not set up. And this is by their own admission. So correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Skydio. They're not really set up to serve the one guy that wants to buy a drone or two. There's an infrastructure, and we can help you with that. If you decide you want to do that, let us know, and we'll connect you to the right person.
It definitely is being connected to the right person, by the way.
It is absolutely being connected. I'm glad you said that. But generally speaking, they're going after the contracts that the organization, the government entity, whatever, is going to buy dozens, if not hundreds of the drones, right?
Yeah.
And docks and the whole thing. That's really what they want. So I think just kind of all this added up, the cost of the Freefly, we love the drone.
Yep.
Obviously we love the drone, but oh my goodness, lots of moolah. I'd be starting with the DJI, and then maybe if you can start to get work using that, start to put money aside for whichever you decide to go with, the Skydio or the Freefly. That's how I'd approach it.
100%. Yeah. I think kind of your barbell strategy of having that bridge fleet, meaning the DJI drones, and then working into the compliance wedge. That way that you can still stay flexible on like what contracts you go over makes a lot of sense. You know, you did say that I'm trying to look at this from a more macro perspective, not just Florida. If you're looking at it from a Florida perspective, how does your analysis change? I mean, Senator Rick Scott.
I was hoping you wouldn't ask me this.
Sorry.
No, really. I mean, because isn't the law in Florida? I mean, are DJIs actually banned in Florida? Is it that stringent? I don't even know if I know enough to answer the question. I
mean, most of the anti-DJI stuff has been coming from Senator Rick Scott, who's from Florida.
But his stuff is proposals. I'm talking about like what the governor has done.
Let's see. Let's find out. I think it was like you can't fly them over critical infrastructure, but they went super broad on the definition of that. So like think of New Smyrna Beach. You know, that little jetty inlet, that's critical infrastructure, so you could get in trouble flying there. But I haven't seen anything about enforcement. I know that public safety agencies went up in arms over it.
As they should.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I think if there's any way to keep flying DJI, that's what I'd be doing. That's how I'd answer that.
I think that's a great response. And then the next question is like, okay, let's say that your business is more tailored towards towards
critical infrastructure
and federal stuff,
which it didn't sound like his was.
No. Look at this. Critical infrastructure in Florida: electrical substations, water treatment plants, gas pipelines, refineries, communication facilities. That means cell towers.
That does mean cell towers.
Ports, inland freight terminals, airports, spaceports. And drones are now legally prohibited from flying over any of those areas.
Wait, drones in general?
Yeah.
Okay, well then it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Jeez, Florida's gotten really bad with drones. In Orlando, drones are prohibited from flying within 500 feet of parks.
What?
That sounds like
where people go to fly them.
Yeah. Violations lead. You can secure a permit.
I'm sure they make that easy.
Well, and that defies federal law. You can't do that. So anyway, this is where I really think the FAA, this is a totally different subject, but the FAA seriously needs to define navigable airspace.
Never going to happen.
I think that there's a need for it to happen now because we're already getting this hodgepodge of drone regulations because state and local governments are figuring out they can control takeoff and landing. But a lot of people are arguing that the FAA can't control unnavigable airspace, which is like below the tree line. Okay. So
you can't fly through that space?
There's a lot of wonky arguments out there.
That's wild.
But a lot of state legislators, state governors and whatnot, they're using it as the excuse to create their own rules. To say like, no. And that's why people like Michael at Airspace Link are saying we have to solidify the federal standard to eliminate any patchwork framework of legislation for drones. And he's absolutely right. And I think while the FAA doesn't want to define navigable airspace for obvious reasons like authority, I think it needs to happen in an effort for them to actually maintain their authority and make it simple and easy to fly, because the United States is starting to become over-regulated. I mean, a lot of people would argue that we're already over-regulated, and I agree. But the drone space, this is all fairly new, like within the last 10 years. And I think this is also the issue with Part 108 is there's some gray areas of like, am I flying a Part 107 operation, or now I'm beyond visual line of sight, which is not defined. So now it's a 108, but wait a minute, I'm flying in between
and
here.
When do I have to decide?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think this brings up an important point. You know, the whole idea here was to provide a succinct answer of should I buy DJI or American drones?
Sorry, Stephen.
But there's a lot that's going on right now. And I think the short answer is that your return, if you're a businessman, you're buying DJI because it makes more sense. Your return on investment is astronomically higher. Your CapEx on an American drone is astronomically higher. And it's going to require additional other costs, right? Higher insurance. You're going to need more training. You don't just pull this thing out of the box and figure it out. Like whenever we get a Freefly sale, I sit there and I put the drone together. Like I do the gimbal, I put it all together. I make sure it's operating right. That's one of the benefits of buying one from us. With Skydio, you got to activate that thing over the cloud. It's the look, Skydio. You guys are doing some cool stuff. But the whole activation process, it took us like 3 or 4 hours before we could actually take off. Like it's not. I think American drones are known to be complex, not user friendly, but they can still get the job done, right? And yeah. And a lot of regulators don't quite understand the depth of those statements. I would say if you're making a business decision, it's buy DJI while you can, and then make a plan now, guys. Like make a plan now to amortize your business to offer American drones and get those contracts. Yes, you can charge more. I was actually sitting here thinking about it. Mm-hmm. We should have a web page on our site that's like American drone training, Chinese drone training, and then say
how about non-American?
Yeah. Domestic, foreign domestic, right? And just say for that any American drone, the cost of training is triple. And then, no, because I mean, like, think about it. You know, we've been operating in a world of $5,000 drones, you know, and
they pretty close to turn it on and start flying when you get it.
Yeah, very much so. Again, I still think the U.S. government could do a much better job at regulating this. It's almost borderline embarrassing how we're taking this broad brush and painting with it. Anyway, that being said, if you take the barbell strategy that Rob said, you buy DJI now, you go after the federal contracts, you're not buying a drone yet. Even if you do get accepted to get a federal contract, you typically have 60 to 90 days to effectively start it. That could give you the 2 to 3 month time frame that you need to go out and buy an American drone. I know Skydio is launching new drones in September, okay? They could be way better and solve a lot of the common gripes with Skydio drones. Yeah. Who knows? I know that Orca is working on a very small drone that can do everything a Mavic 3 Enterprise can do. You know, I know Freefly is working on a smaller drone. The race to these smaller drones is happening. Yeah. Like Flyby Robotics, you know, Autel's trying to do more stuff, even though they're going to be banned too. One thing I would not do is I would not buy a DJI knockoff. I would not buy, the Sky Rover X1. I would not buy, there's so many DJI knockoff companies. It's crazy. There's like 5 or 6 of them now. And I think I only know the names of 2 or 3 of them, but I would not buy any of those. So I wouldn't buy any green drones. I'd either buy DJI or I'd buy Freefly. That's how I would do it right now.
Yeah.
Because at least with the Freefly drone, even though it's more expensive, you can charge more. So back to the website thing. I'm sorry, I'm all over the place. Website, I would have, contact us form for jobs. And then in there, do you require an American drone or a foreign drone is okay with you? And then I would put below it that you're either choosing compliance or performance, meaning it's going to get done faster and cheaper, or it's going to be more expensive and compliant.
Okay, so now we're getting into marketing. Be careful not to overwhelm your potential customer.
Yeah, I know.
So there's a lot to think about there as well. But it is a little bit of a complicated mess. And you know who I blame? Chinese.
Yes, I agree. And I think this is something that I really wish the 51 drones of the world, the Aldrin, you two, even though I think you're a nice guy and you're a good guy, a lot of the other drone influencers are like, there's no proof of DJI, there's no security issue, blah, blah, blah. I will just put it this way. If you don't understand, you don't get it now, you probably never will, because you don't know what you don't know. And that's okay. That's not a bad thing. But there are very real problems with DJI drones. Right. And that being said, if DJI would have taken these actions 2 or 3 years ago, instead of playing the celebrity deny game, we wouldn't even be having this problem.
Yeah.
It would just be own up to your mistakes. Last year, they deleted the data sync, which was part of the problem. The only reason they did that was to try to overcome the scrutiny in DC. Now, Walsh can't even get a meeting in DC because everyone's like, we're done talking to you guys. We tried doing deals with you guys and you just turn your backs 3 to 6 months later and do whatever you want. We're not working with you. You have DJI has essentially taken themselves out of the boardroom when they thought they were smarter than everyone in the boardroom. And that's honestly a good life lesson for everybody. So
yeah,
play fair or get effed.
Here we are.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see what happens. But anyways, get them while you can.
Get them while you can. I would say, and I want to make a YouTube video on this, I think the top 3 DJI drones to buy before the ban, I recommend the Matrice 4 Enterprise, the DJI Air 3S, and the Avata 2. And I would just get a lot of batteries. So
yeah, that's a great fleet.
Yeah, I mean,
could do so much with those.
You can do any of the drone jobs with those drones, any of them.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, an Avata 2 with everything, you're maybe $2,000. Air 3S, $2,000, that's $4,000. And then you buy Matrice 4 Enterprise, you're at $5,000. So for $9,000, you have 3 drones that can cover every drone job. And the closest next American offering is going to be your Astro at, what was it, $30,000 for the non-NDAA approved version?
Yeah. Yep.
So 3-to-1 cost, that means your jobs should cost 3-to-1, because think about your COGS. Your insurance is higher. You have your batteries are way more expensive. It's going to take longer time to charge, longer time to do the jobs. You've got to be considering these things. But if you have a question, you should go to AskDroneU.com and upload them. This was a phenomenal question, Stefan. So thank you so much if I'm pronouncing your name or not. I do really appreciate that you asked that question. I think in this one show alone, we've come up with a few questions that could be asked. Please, guys, we do not answer the questions unless you ask them. AskDroneU.com. But that is going to do it for us today. Anything to add, Rob? I mean...
No, I think we covered it. I feel good.
Yeah.
If you have follow-up questions, let us know. We'd love to hear them.
I feel like this could just keep going in circles, though, because there's so many variables.
Emphasis on circles.
Yeah, and again, to answer your question, there is no statewide ban on DJI for private or commercial use in Florida. So that means you can do the recertifications with DJI. On that bombshell, that's going to do it for us today. Thank you again for joining us. AskDroneU.com.